Welcome to our interview with Joan Shaw, the tourism manager for George, Wilderness and Uniondale at the George municipality. Now, today we're going to talk about tourism in the Garden Route and George, the Greater George area, in the area that is renowned for its absolute wonderful natural beauty and exquisite offerings. Joan, let's start with the very basics. Southern Africa Tourism Services Association, they looked at some stats and they said that Cape Town and the Kruger National Park are by far the most popular destinations for international tourists in the country. George and the Garden Route are lagging far behind. Why is this and how can we fix this?
Okay, Ilse, there's actually a few reasons for that. Firstly, if you look at international arrivals in the whole of South Africa, the South Africans' main source market is the USA. For instance, they have short holidays. They have an 8 to 10 day holiday. So they make one trip in their life to Africa. And what can you do in 8 to 10 days? You land in Joburg or Cape Town. Now Cape Town's got so many lovely direct flights. You do Cape Town. You can't do Cape Town in less than 3 days. And then most of them want a wildlife experience. So they may go up to either Kruger is their first choice, or sometimes somewhere like the Pilanesberg, where they can see the Big Five within a small area. So a lot of tour operators sell Sun City as an alternative to Kruger, but most of them do that. Then that's for their first trips. Very few of those people return. However, the ones that do return do then come further afield. Mm-hmm. Maybe they will do an Eastern Cape, maybe they'll do a Garden Route, or maybe they'll do both. Some of them get directed in other directions up the West Coast and to Namibia. And tourism has opened our arms, especially from a marketing point of view, to the rest of Africa. And that's actually becoming a bit of an issue for us because they are very popular wildlife destinations. And most of them have great beaches. And so that's something we have to fight against. And all of us must realize we're marketing each other. We have to market our neighbors like we market ourselves, but we don't have to go to the next country. We can keep people in South Africa where, I don't know, maybe you're not old enough, but I'm old enough to remember See the World in One Country, those ads that SAT used to do.
I remember it very well.
And you literally can, see the world in South Africa. And there's just not enough time for most arrivals. However, the UK and the German markets do return, and they do come back and explore different places. But the Garden Route used to be very high as a brand, and I think we've fallen short over the last maybe 20 or 30 years in saying, why don't we market ourselves as an umbrella under Garden Route? I don't know when last you were on the Sunshine Coast, but if you go past PE, every tourism office is branded Sunshine Coast. It doesn't say you're Bathurst and you're Port Alfred and everything says. And I think we need to really considering going back to that trend. Same as Australia's got the Gold Coast. Yeah. I mean, it's synonymous with the Gold Coast. And I can't tell you where it starts or where it ends, but if you're going along that beautiful strip, you're on the Gold Coast.
That makes absolute perfect sense, because, no one who comes to the Garden Route is only going to visit one town in any case.
Exactly. And not even one province. If you go up to Tsitsikamma, you're in the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
So tourists don't see boundaries. They just see a beautiful route and things to do and see. Yeah. And the warm hospitality they get offered along the way, which we are not short on.
So if you look at the latest research and stats and stuff that you've got, what can we do? How do we change this?
Yeah. So definitely the good thing is that we're trying to change it from all angles. We are looking at starting a marketing organization where everyone can get involved, not just government, but also the private sector in associations like SATSA, which you mentioned in your stats, in FedHasa, the hotel groups, in lots of different ways. Westgrow, the cities, and the private sector are most important. Tourism must be private sector led because we just support that, we don't lead. And everybody can get involved, and we adopt the Garden Route first sort of brand stance Yes, you can still say you're from George because we'll always be in co-opetition all the times we call it. We're working together, but it's sort of in opposition to each other. And just really get people to the bigger destination of the garden route and Kleinkaroo. The Kleinkaroo offers us such a beautiful alternative for rainy days, which we have a lot of, and thank goodness we do. But, it's important that we don't leave them behind because they just give us another total experience.
If you look at all the trends that you've seen emerging lately, you mentioned earlier before the interview, you mentioned AI to me, people's interest in that when they book their holidays, and just everything that you see at all the trade fairs that you attend. What are the latest trends and what do tourists, especially international tourists to our shores, what are they looking for? What do they want?
Yeah, sure. So the first and foremost trend we find is people are saying they want us to go green. They want to be sustainable. They're not just doing it for their holidays. They're doing it at home. They're recycling. They're using alternative power sources. Doing maybe not just things, sustainable things, but also the people around them, the communities around them. Buy from your local farmer, buy rather from a local producer than a mass-made thing that's imported. So,
and make sure that your guest knows that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The yogurt is locally sourced.
Yes. Then also, people want to know more about actual South African food, Can you name one South African restaurant in George?
A typical South African restaurant?
No. So funny enough, the best restaurant in South Africa is called Fane, which is in Cape Town. But it's actually a blend of Asian and South African. So a lot of South African produce, but made in the Asian manner. But there is actually one new restaurant. I'm going to try it this weekend at the Clay Cafe area. And they do everything on the fire. So they've got pizza, which they can do on the fire, but then they do a lovely braai and bykos, all those side dishes, South African flair. And then 101 Meat also says South African style, but I think everybody needs to use more local produce. We're a great dairy area. Serve your local cheese for breakfast and the yogurt. Lancewood is world famous anyway.
Yes.
So let's serve it and make sure people know it's made here. The same with, for instance, if you live in Oudtshoorn, then you serve ostrich eggs or ostrich meat, you don't have to just do that, but throw in the local stuff. It makes a huge difference.
Your unique selling point, so to speak.
Yes, and people remember that. Local strawberries that are grown here. And not just strawberries. Have you tasted the latest harvest of kiwis? They are fantastic. So all that wonderfully locally grown is very good. Then a big trend since COVID, of course, is the leisure trips, which people mix work and leisure, business and leisure. And so people might want to have a dedicated workspace in their hotel room. Or they want to be able to do their business, but still go out at night for interesting cultural sort of events.
So this is especially with the remote working.
Absolutely.
Where they combine their holiday, but they still have to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I retire. When I retire from the municipality, I'm going to do that. Then also we're seeing a huge trend for solo travelers, and especially women, funny enough, traveling alone, experiencing, and really that's the best way to get an experience of a country. And in South Africa, it is still relatively safe, if you're careful to travel with by yourself. And if you think about it, if you're in a group, you stick with your group, right? But if you're alone, you're sort of forced to make friends and meet people and do a cultural exchange. And so I think that's a very exciting trend.
My cousin is a world traveler.
Yeah.
She did China on her own. She's just not a scared hair on her head.
Yeah.
Any case, and she says, if you travel in a group, it's wonderful and you're fun, but you're sharing all your experiences just with the group.
Yes.
Whereas if you're on your own, you actually meet new people and they share their new experiences with you of that country that you're in.
And that's why you want to go back, because people have been places that aren't on your itinerary.
Yes. Yeah.
What my favorite is if someone walks in the office and I can hear they're not sure what to do or they're looking for something different, I'll always walk out because I can hear what they're saying in the reception desk from my office. And I'll say, let me tell you my favorite things to do. And they're silly. I love having a swim in a tidal pool, either at Herald's Bay or Vic, just at sunrise. Yeah, it's a bit cold, but, it's just exquisite. Yes. Go to the Wonky Way. Go to Van Rensburg's. It's little things that you wouldn't say necessarily is a tourist attraction. But it's what makes George special for me as a local. Cheese shop. Discounted cheeses and luxuries. Or the little Italian deli. Even though it's Italian, it's the best you can find, probably even than in Italy, because the quality of our meat is so high.
Yeah, and it's made right here in George.
Exactly. So I love that. So the next thing I'm going to do actually is write a little blog or brochure about my little favorite thingies in George. Why I'm happy to be a local. And how to pack your suitcase. I'm a very good packer.
Great. I'll read that. Please write that blog.
Then agritourism is still growing. So if we can just get our farmers to get involved.
Oh.
Look at, for instance, the, sorry to punt them again, but Buffalo. It's a buffalo farm. They're primarily farmers. And yet they're running this wildly successful accommodation business. The Herald Meander with their honeybush tea, and that needs some traction still to be open all the time to the public.
And the road is being fixed.
Yes, absolutely. We spoke a little bit about Lux for Less. So just upgrading South Africa's quality of accommodation is fantastic. Even a 3-star. People say, oh, do I need to book 5-star? I say, definitely not.
Yes. If
you can afford it, by all means. But 5-star isn't necessarily about the service. It's more about the facilities available. Have you got 24-hour room service? Have you got a bar, fridge? Is it stocked? All that. That's what makes a star rating. But what can only truly make your business 5-star is your service and your hospitality. And that South Africans have naturally. I think a lot of South Africans are natural service givers. We like to share our culture and experiences, and we can really make it special and 5-star without having all those extra expenses.
And we really want to make our guests happy.
Absolutely.
It makes us proud.
Absolutely. Sometimes to our own detriment. My husband's always saying, why are you always dragging people in for dinner or this or that? I'm a natural sort of hostess. I can't help it. And so like we were saying, maybe run them a bath or if it's a honeymoon couple and put some petals in the bath. It costs you nothing. Feather pillows, things. So don't up your rates to 5-star. Just have a good
Creature
quality.
comforts.
Yes, good quality product that makes people feel like kings and queens. That's the thing.
Okay, so we've spoken about the local offering, what people can sort of small things to do enhance. Now, if I run a guest house or a hotel, okay, should I be targeting tour operators or am I fine with everything online? Booking.com, Airbnb, Lekker Slaap.
Yeah. Okay, so I've heard a lot of people say lately they're not going to do Booking.com anymore or Airbnb anymore because they take too much commission. People don't know how lucky they are to have this almost free marketing business partner that's marketing them to the whole world every single hour of the day. Yes, they take a commission, but they take the commission on bookings. So 90% or 85% of nothing is nothing. So let's smile and pay the commission and do it. For a tour operator business, you have to understand, and I'm not sure, it's changing all the time. So, but in a traditional South African situation, say we do business with Germany, so you want to attract Germans. So now you have to go and see tour operators or meet them at a fair, which is very pricey, by the way. Your own small standard affair could cost between 40 and 100,000 Rand. If you do your decor like you want it or whatever, just it can be exorbitant. So now you meet with a travel agent or tour operators and you say, I've got this beautiful guest house. And they say, yes, that's very nice. What do you offer? Then you say, okay, can you book with me? And they're like, well, we do a brochure. So you can go in our brochure and on our itinerary, but it's going to cost you X to advertise in that brochure.
Mm-hmm.
Then, or they'll say, okay, but we can maybe put you on the itinerary, but our brochures are printed for this year. So we can only put you on in 3 years. By 3 years, the market might have changed. You know, markets are changing so quickly. The top traditional markets remain US, UK, Germany. But we look how strong India was for the garden route, and then the visas clamped down. Now the Indians are coming back. We could see heaps of Chinese tomorrow. The Saudis are coming. Are we catering for them? You know, who can you find? So I would say if I owned a small guest house, definitely just market to the South Africans and they will market for you. So if they have a great experience, they will tell everybody about it. Yeah.
So you don't sort of market differently to different audiences? So to the Indians compared to what the Americans
we do.
want.
Depends what they want. We do. But remember, we as George Tourism, we're a municipal department. We sell the destination. But if you got your own business, you have to decide who you want. So a lot of tourism businesses in our area prefer not to take Indian guests because they come in very large groups. They can be noisy. In the old days, they used to like to cook in their rooms because they want proper Indian food. You know, you'll hear all the complaints. Their children are a bit naughty sometimes, you know.
A little bit spoiled.
Yeah. And they can just get left because they're on holiday, so they can cause a riot. Me personally, I love it. I love India, so that is salt on my senses, smells and sounds and noise and color. I just absolutely adore it. But that's up to you. So you must decide who you want. Do you want children? Do you want older people? Do you want honeymoon couples? There's so many different little segments that you can market to. Some people prefer businessmen. They come in, they go out for dinner, they come in late, they have their breakfast, they leave early, they don't see them for the whole day. You know, so it depends really on what you need. And we're all in business to make money. But I think a lot of people run it as a business and a lot of people run it as my mom used to call it pin money. You know, it's just a little extra income. So it depends, firstly, what your objectives are and how much you want to do. Do you want to make a lot of money? Then, you know, if I get guests, for instance, I don't have a guest house, but I will put milk in the fridge. I'll put a little fruit platter for their arrival. I'll put nice fresh flowers there. It's what I do.
Things that you would like to have, you will provide for your guests.
Exactly. I even will put in a pair of disposable slippers if they're from abroad, you know, because people don't always travel with their slippers if they're going far.
Yes. No,
so just little touches that you know. There's also different ways. So if you decide, say you want people from Saudi Arabia, they're very high spenders. There's not a lot of them, but they come and they spend a lot of money. Mark a little spot where East is for their prayers. Provide a little prayer rug. Make sure you got a list in your room of where there's halal food available. You know, if that's, you don't want to make that from scratch every time you get new guests. It's a bit unrealistic. But if you know those are the kind of guests you're getting, don't serve bacon for breakfast. So there's ways you can adapt to the markets you want. And really it's what suits you as a business owner. What would you like to, who would you like staying with you? Because if you have a accommodation, you're their hostess. So it's up to you.
So it is about George Naturally, the new brand that was launched not so long ago. How is this sort of the essence of the area?
So our tourism brand has really, really resonated with a lot of people, especially domestic people. They see the nature, that's what they come for. They don't necessarily want a formal attraction. They just want to go running or hiking or cycling. We have focused a lot on sustainability, on hiking and trails, and also a little bit just pushing golf up a bit. So we've just busy with a new brand, overarching brand for golf, where we're saying we're the home of golf in Africa. And we're hoping to reach a lot more international golfers through that, because people want to play Augusta, they want to play Scotland. You know, there's those homes of golf traditionally around the world. And George is naturally that. So it's not just all nature, nature, nature. It's naturally what you find in George. And it's naturally the place to live, work, study, you know. So the sort of dual meaning of the word, if you like, is resonating. And we find even the minister, when he talks about George now, he'll say, you know, it's happening in George naturally, which is fantastic. He does that in all his speeches. And yeah, so the brand itself is also becoming known. We've extended our brand now also to the trails, and we've brought over the old George Trails website, and that now belongs to us in association with the George Joint Marketing Association that we've started, where the private sector, the golf courses, everybody is now putting money into a non-profit company to market our area harder for things it's really known for, and that we can easily get more people, and that we can start driving more revenue through for our town and our businesses. Every product in our region should be marketing George. You know, they should make sure people know where they are. I often on an airline magazine, I say, oh, that hotel looks nice. And then I can't find where it is. I have to Google it and I get home to see where it is. So just to co-brand the George naturally, and always make sure people know we're in the garden route. It's very important. We don't have to say South Africa so much. I think the garden route is synonymous, unless you're working in a new market. Then just the flag is enough. You know, just put the little flag to say we're in South Africa. Because when you're marketing, you don't have a big budget and a huge ad where you can just say everything. So it's quick to pick up symbols, just to give you a sense of place, because
so
that's what people want.
Your tag words,
absolutely.
Very important.
Absolutely, yeah.
And those are the most important things as far as marketing is concerned, if you want to get value for your buck with advertising. Basically.
Absolutely. Make sure people know where you are. Otherwise, they're just going to shrug it off, you know. If I know, for instance, I want to come to the garden route, but I see a hotel and I think, I never think, maybe that's in the garden route. I want to know where it is. Otherwise, I look for something else.
Yeah. How can the towns in the garden route sort of cooperate? What can they do to work together so that everybody benefits?
Yes, so I think there's a lot of that. So what made the Midlands Meander famous was their motto was, market your neighbour like you market yourself. Mm-hmm. So send people onto each other to keep them in our area for longer. And we're really good at that in George, because we don't have that many formal attractions, and not everybody's a hiker or a biker or a swimmer. We'll say, base yourself in George, unpack your bags for 5 days, and then every day you take a beautiful road trip out Mossel Bay, knysna-plett, Oudtshoorn. You know, it's a few days in the garden route that are really well spring. Just the road trips are gorgeous. And at the end of the day, if you're tired, you come back on the motorway. So what more do you want? And then I think all the towns should do that. Make sure people say, where are you going next? You know, don't just go through to Hermanus. Stop in George or Mossel Bay. Stop in Plett if you're on your way to PE. Go and see what there is to offer. Because once you've experienced it, you always want to come back if you had a good time, right? Or if it's so beautiful that it takes your breath away, which so many places in our area are. And then also, I think we could work together under cooperative marketing. So similar to the Gold Coast in Australia, or the Sunshine Coast just on our doorstep. So everybody, first and foremost, make sure we branded garden route. People must know we're in the garden route. And we can pool our resources. I mean, I told you we spend a lot of money on data, buying data to know where to target our marketing money to. Now, we could share that. The district municipality could buy that data and give each town their stats. Then we also know how you can name your 5 biggest competitors on that. So, of course, we've got the 3 other main towns in the garden route, and then we also look at Hermanus and Stellenbosch, just as how we're doing against them. So everybody could be using that information. We should, for World Travel Market, we get together as garden route towns and products, and we do a massive garden route stand, and it works so well for us. So I'd encourage people to get on board. If you see an invitation to come and exhibit with us, often the district will even subsidize the floor space. So, it's much more cost effective. And what's nice is if you're marketing in a pack, then you can send people even there. Go and see that one, they do that. Go and see that one, they do that. And it's very exciting. And you can see the business coming in, and that's very, very fulfilling.
And the various tourism managers, they don't sort of say something when you've turned your back. George isn't actually nice.
Listen, we're all very critical of each other. But, I've been seeing, I follow a lot of things, obviously. So at night I do my bedside reading now is a scroll, not a book. But how people are saying places in South Africa that are like France, and wilderness always comes up, and Plett, of course, and they're very similar. So we're a little bit in competition with them, but my best holidays are in either of those towns. And my friends and family think I'm crazy but I've seen the world. It's so nice for me to go home. I can go home and feed my cat. I can take my coffee machine with me, and it's just so lovely. So why must the rest of the world want to come here and I don't want to come here? Of course I do.
Yeah.
So, it's wonderful to be a tourist in your own town.
And naturally, George
Absolutely.
has everything on its doorstep.
Everything. I say everything nature can give you except a glacier, but we don't want that cold.
Naturally
No, it's really, and, not just, we were talking earlier about really, is George really a holiday place? What did you say? No fish, no flesh. But it's also a fantastic place to do business. And we are busy now with a feasibility study for a biggish convention center. Not ICC. We're looking more like Century City style. And there's definitely... we always almost saying it's a no-brainer, but we want to have our facts together. And that'll be exciting. We can get a lot more events here.
You told me earlier on that the Wilderness Hotel has been sold.
Yes, so we're super excited. We can't say who to yet, but it has been sold, and it's going to get a lovely new outfit. Some quick changes, and then also, of course, the proper upgrade will take place over time.
Yes.
We're hoping, that things will go very well. We know the business is there, so we're looking forward to welcoming the new owner, whoever they are.
Wonderful. And that means that they believe in the future of, tourism in our area, and especially in George.
Absolutely. Yes. And they're looking for more properties apparently in the garden route, but that's just a rumor.
We didn't get it from you. Joan Shaw, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks
All
for
the
having
best.
me.
Yes.
Yeah, super. Thank you.